What is going on, guys? Tommy from Offroad Jeeping here. So I just got a new set of Nitto trail glappers for my Jeep. So I'd taken the old ones off to obviously mount the new ones, and I figured while everything was exposed here, I'd do a quick little video, mostly for some of the newer Jeepers, to sort of explain what the main things underneath your Jeep are and how to identify what they are and kind of what they do. Because a lot of new Jeepers, they just see all the stuff, they don't know what any of it's called, what any of it does. So I figured just do a quick little explanation, rundown video. A lot of wind, but hopefully it doesn't ruin the audio too bad. So let's get right to it. So we're going to start in the front. More specifically, we're going to start with the steering. So if you look underneath, first it's just sort of like distinguish kind of what's going on. We're going to look at there's going to be bars going along the Jeep and across the Jeep. We're going to look at the bars going across the Jeep first. So you're going to have two that are in front. So there's 3 bars on the front end that go across the Jeep, so in that direction. 1 in the back and 2 in the front. So my Jeep is obviously modified a lot, but it's the same sort of idea for any Jeep, any coil sprung Jeep at least. So we'll start with the lower bar. So you're gonna have 2 bars in front. They're not gonna be silver on most Jeeps, they're just gonna be black, just like the rest of the undercarriage. You're gonna have a lower bar. You're gonna have that lower bar, which is straight across. The upper bar is usually gonna be at a bit of an angle. The lower bar straight across, and so pretty much what this does is, this is called your tie rod. So this ties your two, pretty much, I mean technically it's the knuckle, but it ties this pretty much the 2 wheels together so that the 2 wheels can be at the same angle. So the reasoning it does that is, 1, to set your toe. So toe is pretty much how the Jeep, how the wheel sits in that angle. So if your wheel is like this, you're toed in. If your wheel is like that, you're toed out. So the tie rod sets the toe, and then also on a solid axle sort of connects this knuckle to that knuckle, because your steering only moves that one, and I'll get to that in a second. So that's your tie rod. Ties them together. So if you ever see like a video of like a Jeep climbing a hill or something, and you'll see the 2 wheels just fold in on each other, they usually bent or broke a tire. So next, we have the drag link. The drag link is going to be the upper of your 2 steering arms. So this is going to connect your pitman arms. So kind of an explanation of how like the steering works. You got your steering box up there, and your steering box has is turning this shaft. So you have that shaft that turns, and then you have your pitman arm. The pitman arm turns the rotation of that shaft into lateral movement, which in turn is what moves your steering. So this is your pitman arm. Goes from your sector shaft to your drag link, and the drag link pretty much just links the pitman arm to the steering knuckle so that your pitman arm movement can actually turn the wheel, because your wheel mounts here onto your rotor, and all that is pretty much directly connected to the movement that this drag link can make. And that'll move this knuckle, and then since the tie rod connects that knuckle to that knuckle, that way both your wheels can turn together. So, quick recap. You got your, here, let me see if I can get a better view of the steering box. Yeah, it's hiding in there. You got your steering box, which turns your sector shaft in there, the splined one, which pretty much moves the pitman arm, because the pitman arm, since it's on that shaft and that shaft is rotating, it's going to swing around sort of like a circle. Your pitman arm is going to move your drag link is going to move your knuckle is going to move the tie rod, and the wheels move. So that pretty much sums up the steering. Oh, and then so when you're moving, so if you ever hear of someone needing ball joints are these guys. So yeah, that's a ball joint. It pretty much allows the knuckle to turn side to side without moving up and down at all, or laterally. It pretty much, the only movement that ball joint will allow is like that, and when people say the ball joint is starting to go, usually that means that the ball joint is worn and it's allowing it to go like that or like that, which is no bueno. If you know me personally, you'll appreciate that pun. Alright, so now moving into suspension. So Jeeps have, so you can either call it like a 5-link or a parallel 4-link, but so pretty much you can have 4 parallel bars, parallel-ish, they're just like, they're straight, there's no triangulation to them. 4 bars that position the axle underneath the Jeep. So these are called control arms. So these are your control arms. You can have two lowers. Here's a lower control arm, and you're gonna have two uppers. There's an upper control arm. So these are in charge of two things. Pinion angle, which is the angle that your drive shaft, pretty much the angle the axle sort of making. So pinion angle is important because if your axle is pointed, see, like, it's pointed in that direction. If it's pointed in that direction, then it puts your drive shaft in a bind, and that's not a good thing. So your control arms are in charge of putting that angle in the right place throughout the travel, and in charge of positioning the axle. So if you have shorter control arms, your axle will be further this way. If you have longer control arms, your axle will be further that way. So those are control arms. They're going to be, the control arms are pretty much going to be the only links that move that way along the Jeep. Everything else is going to move that way. So that leaves just one link connecting the axle to the Jeep, and that's going to be this guy. This is your track bar. So on normal link suspension that's not triangulated, what triangulated means is that instead of going straight up and down the Jeep, they will turn endward. See, like that one has like a tiny bit of it, but it's like kind of an insignificant amount. I'm talking like they'll mount them in the center and they'll go all the way out to the frame. But that's not really, that's beyond this video. So since your control arms just go straight along the Jeep, you need something to center the axle. And by center the axle, I mean keep the axle from moving in that direction or that direction. And that's where your track bar comes into play. So this pretty much just fixes the axle laterally in a position. So it connects here in your lower track bar bracket because it's the lower of the two track bar brackets. And then you have your upper track bar bracket or your frame side track bar bracket. And again, yeah, that's pretty much just in charge of centering the axle where it's at. So, recap of the whole front end: steering box, pitman arm, drag link, tie rod, track bar in the black back there, ball joint, and your control arms, uppers and lowers. Alright, so now let's make our way to the back of the Jeep to identify a lot of the same stuff, just in the rear. So, the rear mine's going to be a little bit different because I have a 3-link. So, pretty much that means is there's 3 control arms instead of 4. But other than that, it's all pretty similar. But here is a great way to sort of show how changing the control arm length can change where the axle is. So, normally, this is about the center of your wheel well, and the center of your axle will sit about here. Mine sits back here. Why is that? Because I have longer control arms to move my axle backward. I did have to do a offset spring perch. Spring perch is where your spring sits, but you're never really gonna have to replace a spring perch. But same sort of thing. Lower control arm here, upper control arm up there. You got, so mine doesn't have in the front, but most Jeeps will. So you'll have your sway bar. That's going to be like a thin bar on the like right along the frame, and that's pretty much in charge of keeping your body roll down. So that will essentially sort of fix the axle like that to the frame. But since this bar is flexible, you still have some flex. So when you see like sway bar disconnects, that's you're pretty much making it so you can disconnect this piece, your sway bar end link, which is what connects your sway bar to your axle. You're making this piece removable so that you can have all the flex and all the body roll because you want that off-road. On-road, you want sway bars. Even off-road, you do want sway bars. Just you don't want like a set of street sway bars because there's different stiffnesses of sway bar. Like if you look at an anti-rock, for example, you have like different holes you can use. And honestly, in the rear, I like leaving the stock sway bar because it really helps with stability. But in just like the front, you have track bar bracket, centering the axle. And then, so I didn't cover that in the front, but shocks, these are your shocks. Those are your springs. So there's a common like misconception that like if your vehicle's sagging or something, it's because of the shocks. That's not true. Shocks do not hold the weight of your vehicle. Springs hold the weight of your vehicle. So your springs have a spring rate, and that's sort of like the stiffness. A lot of coils, like the rock crawler coils, have 3 different spring rates, so you have like different feel throughout the travel for a better ride and better sport. But springs are what hold the vehicle, shocks are what control the vehicle. So the spring is what supports the vehicle in a position above the axle, and the shock will control how the axle moves through that travel. So let's say if your vehicle's feeling super bouncy, that's a shock issue. If your vehicle's sitting too low, that's a spring issue. So honestly, that just about sums it up. These Jeeps are super simple. It's really not that much to figure out. Yeah, it's control arms, drag link, tie rod, pitman arm, track bar. They're really super simple vehicles, super simple to figure out what you want. And if you ever have like death wobble, for example, now you know where to look and you can check for play. Like I have Heim joints or a normal Jeep will have tie rod ends. But like if you can wiggle this back and forth or side to side, that's probably going to be what's causing your death wobble. If while your wheel is mounted, you can move the knuckle like that, that means your ball joint's bent. That means your ball joint's probably causing your death wobble. I'll let you in on a little secret. Steering stabilizers don't cause death wobble. I have no steering stabilizer on my Jeep. I don't have death wobble because all my parts are in good shape. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry it's been about 2 weeks since the last video. There's just a lot going on, but hope you guys enjoyed it. We're super close to 1,000 subscribers, so if you guys could, normally I say if you want to hit the subscribe button, no, I'm demanding this time, hit that subscribe button. If you want to like the video, like the video. If you want to comment on the video, comment on the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.